My hands were still red from scrubbing the kitchen tiles when I found out my husband had transferred our house into his name alone. It wasn't a big announcement or a confrontation. No, it was a casual comment made during a backyard barbecue by his coworker, Tom. Smart move, locking down the title before the new tax hikes kick in, man. My heart stuttered, but my face didn't flinch. I just kept flipping the burgers, nodding like I was in on the plan. My name is Diana Mercer. I'm 44 years old, and I've spent the last 5 years as the full-time caregiver for my husband's disabled father. Richard, my father-in-law, moved into our guest room after his stroke. Daniel, my husband, said it would only be a few months. Those months turned into years. And somehow, I became the nurse, the cook, the cleaner, the companion. I gave up my job as a graphic designer. I gave up weekends. I gave up sleep. What I didn't realize was that Daniel was also quietly making sure I gave up every legal right to the home I was sacrificing everything to keep running. It wasn't always like this. Daniel and I were high school sweethearts. He used to write me poems in the margins of his calculus notes. We got married in our mid-20s and bought the house 10 years ago, a modest 2-story colonial in a sleepy Illinois suburb. Back then, he made a big show of how everything we owned was ours. But that changed after Richard's stroke. Slowly, things started becoming his responsibility, his inheritance, his family. When Daniel suggested we bring his father to live with us, I didn't hesitate. Of course, I said. We'll make it work. I rearranged the house, converted my home office into a quiet space for Richard, learned how to administer meds, even taught myself how to make low-sodium meals. What I didn't see coming was how Daniel started pulling away, not just emotionally, but legally. He started talking about streamlining things. Less paperwork, he said. Just easier if the deed only had one name. He promised it was temporary, that it would make refinancing smoother. I trusted him. I didn't ask for documents. I didn't sign anything with hesitation. I just kept caring for his father. And Daniel? He started working late more often. Golf weekends came up. His phone was always face down. But I was too tired to care. When you're changing bedpans at 3 a.m., you're not thinking about marriage counseling or title transfers. That barbecue changed everything. I didn't ask Daniel about the house that night. I smiled through gritted teeth and served potato salad to the men who toasted his smart financial planning. But something cracked in me. That night, while Daniel was passed out on the couch from too many beers, I sat at the kitchen table and started gathering receipts. Every grocery bill. Every pharmacy run. The Uber rides to the neurologist. I pulled old emails from hospice nurses. I downloaded the care plan I'd created for Richard. I dug up tax forms, utility bills, water heater repair receipts, and the invoice from the time I replaced the stair rail after Richard's fall. I bought a fireproof folder on Amazon. I labeled it, Home. From that moment, every single day I continued caring for Richard. I also quietly built my file. I called it my ledger. It wasn't revenge. Not yet. It was just insurance, like knowing where the exits are in a movie theater. I didn't know when the fire would come. But I knew I wasn't going to burn with it. Daniel never noticed. He bragged to his coworkers about remodeling plans and real estate flips. He made me take pictures of the house to send to his contractor friend. "This bathroom's going to be our moneymaker," he said one night, patting the wall like it was already sold. I kept nodding. I kept smiling. I kept the folder under the bed, next to the locked case with Richard's medication log. I didn't know when things would fall apart. I just knew that when they did, I'd be ready. "I thought we agreed the dining room was off limits," I said, eyeing the crumpled paint swatches Daniel had left scattered on the table, again. "We did," he said casually, sliding toast into his mouth, But I had some time to kill on lunch and figured, why not get ahead of things? He didn't look up from his phone. He didn't notice that my coffee mug trembled slightly in my hand. Get ahead of what? I asked, even though I already knew. The redesign, he replied, scrolling. After, he stopped short. You know, after. After Richard died. That's what he meant. I stared at him. You're already planning renovations while your father's still alive. He shrugged, like it was a business decision. I mean, not like he's using the space. I could have screamed. But instead, I swallowed the bile rising in my throat and said nothing. Because silence, as I was learning, could be just as sharp as any blade. From the outside, it probably looked like I was still playing house. Making dinners. Watering the front garden. Picking up Daniel's dry cleaning. But inside, something had shifted permanently. I was cataloging everything now, not just receipts, but behaviors. Remarks. Patterns. Like how Daniel suddenly stopped using "we" when talking about the future. How he had started offering vague answers about finances. Or how the passwords to our joint bank account stopped working on my devices a month ago. He claimed it was just a security reset. I didn't push. I didn't need to. Because now, every word he said went into the file. Every time he dismissed me, every careless reveal, every time he underestimated me, it became another brick in the wall I was quietly building. I kept recording everything. The care schedules. The nightly meds. I had over 200 pages logged in a digital journal, each day timestamped and backed up to the cloud. But I wasn't just recording anymore. I was preparing. That week, I made 3 quiet phone calls. The first was to a local elder law attorney, someone with deep experience in family caregiving disputes. I gave a fake name. Just asked some hypothetical questions. The second was to the hospice nurse who came twice a week to check on Richard. I asked if she'd be willing to write a statement later confirming that I was the primary caregiver. She looked confused but nodded. Of course. You're the one doing everything anyway. The third call was to my old coworker Carla. She was a forensic bookkeeper now, one of the best in the area. Are you sure you want to go down this road? She asked gently after I explained what I was looking for. I'm not going down it, I said flatly. I'm paving it. Daniel, meanwhile, was blissfully unaware. His arrogance had grown bolder. That Friday night, he invited friends over, guys from work, loud and smug. They brought beer and stood around the backyard fire pit while I served snacks like a hired hand. You're lucky, man, one of them said to Daniel, sipping from a bottle. No mortgage, no landlord, killer location. You could flip this place for twice what it's worth. Daniel grinned. Give it 6 months. We'll be sitting on a goldmine. I wanted to laugh. He was speaking like a bachelor who'd struck gold. Like I was a placeholder, not a partner. I excused myself quietly and went inside, gripping my phone like a lifeline. That night, I scanned the property title at 2 a.m. I'd requested a certified copy from the county clerk 2 weeks earlier. Sure enough, it confirmed everything, Daniel's name. Only Daniel's. No mention of mine, not even as a tenant. He hadn't just removed me, he'd made sure I had no claim. The next day, I went to Richard's room and helped him with his morning routine. He was having a better day, lucid and soft-spoken. You look tired, kid, he said as I helped him shave. Just didn't sleep well, I said. Had a lot on my mind. He met my eyes in the mirror. It's Daniel, isn't it? I froze. I'm not stupid, he added gently. He's got his mother's charm and his father's selfish streak. I didn't respond, but my throat felt tight. For a moment, I considered telling him everything, about the deed, the files, the planning. But I didn't. Not because I didn't trust him, but because I didn't want to weigh him down with something he couldn't change. Still, his words stayed with me. His father's selfish streak. That night, I opened a fresh spreadsheet and labeled it, Household Contributions, Diana Mercer. I itemized every utility bill I had paid since Richard moved in. Every grocery list, medication run, home repair, and equipment rental. I calculated the estimated value of my unpaid caregiving hours, $21.75 per hour, 40 hours a week minimum, over 3 years. The number climbed past $135,000 within 2 columns. And that wasn't even counting emotional labor. Daniel came home around 10, smelling like beer and chili fries. "You still up?" "Yeah," I said, clicking my laptop shut. "Working on something?" "Just organizing receipts." He laughed, walking past me. "Jesus, D. You and your files." I smiled to myself. He had no idea just how organized I was becoming. Richard died on a Wednesday morning. It was calm. Peaceful. The hospice nurse said it was the best any of us could have hoped for. He'd been fading for days, barely speaking, barely awake. When I found him, he looked like he was sleeping. His chest wasn't rising anymore. The TV was still on, a rerun of MASH*, playing low in the background. He would have liked that. I stood there for a long moment, my hands clenched at my sides. I thought I'd cry. But I didn't. I just placed my hand gently on his shoulder and whispered, "You're free now." At 7:22 a.m., I called Daniel. He didn't answer. I texted him, "Your father passed at 6:55. I've contacted hospice." No response. At 8:10 a.m., I called again. Straight to voicemail. By the time the hospice nurse arrived and the official paperwork was underway, it was already mid-morning. She asked if my husband would be joining us. I gave a small shake of my head. "He's tied up." He showed up at 11:45 a.m. No flowers. No questions. Just a furrowed brow and, "Did you call me?" I nodded. At 7:22. I texted too. He pulled out his phone, glanced at the screen. I was in a meeting. And then there was a conference call. I didn't see it. He said it like I'd texted him about a broken garbage disposal. Like the death of his father was an inconvenience in his workday. "I had to call the nurse," I said, calmly. "She handled the declaration and initial steps. Everything's sorted." Daniel gave a small nod and walked past me into the house. Never asked if I was okay. Never said thank you. Never sat by his father's bed, even though it still smelled faintly of shaving cream and cough drops. That night, after the coroner had taken Richard's body and the nurse had left, I opened the hallway closet and removed the fireproof folder. I took it into the garage and added 3 new pages, the hospice release form, the final medication log, and a notarized statement signed by the nurse, confirming I was the sole caregiver for the past 3 years. No one else had administered a single dose of anything. Daniel spent the next 2 days calling funeral homes and fielding awkward conversations with relatives who hadn't spoken to Richard in years. I let him. I offered no suggestions, no advice. He wanted control. He could have it. Saturday morning, he sat at the dining table flipping through a brochure. "I was thinking, cremation," he said. I nodded. "It's cleaner. Less hassle. And maybe we can take a small trip afterward. Just the 2 of us. Get a break." A break. I almost laughed in his face. He didn't say thank you for 3 years of caregiving. He didn't ask how I was coping. He just talked about flights and fresh starts and maybe putting in that wine fridge now that the back bedroom was available again. That afternoon, I took my folder to the law office I'd researched months ago. Not the legal aid clinic. This time I went to the big firm downtown, the one with framed newspaper articles in their waiting room and silk plants by the elevator. I had a consult with a family law attorney named Elizabeth Grant. Sharp suit. Sharper eyes. I've documented 3 years of unpaid elder care, I told her, sliding the folder across the desk. Every grocery bill, every pharmacy trip, every invoice. I also have sworn statements from 2 hospice staff and a home nurse. She opened the folder and flipped through the pages with practiced efficiency. You want to file for equitable reimbursement? She asked. Or are you looking for something more aggressive? I smiled. I'm looking for what I've earned. And I'm not leaving the house. She paused, then nodded slowly. We can do that. By the time I returned home, Daniel was on the phone in the backyard, pacing like he was running a startup from our garden. She'll be fine, I heard him say, laughing. It's all mine now anyway. That night, after he went to bed, I took my laptop and began typing a formal letter of intent. Elizabeth had given me a template. It was clean, direct, and loaded with the kind of citations that make grown men sweat: state elder care statutes, equitable contribution laws, and precedents for unpaid labor reimbursement. I printed it and placed it in a sealed envelope marked, "To be opened after you try to evict me." It wasn't just spite. It was strategy. Monday morning, Daniel cornered me in the kitchen. So, he began, sipping his espresso like a Bond villain in a polo shirt, I've been thinking. With Dad gone, maybe we should consider downsizing. You know, a fresh start somewhere new. Something easier to manage. I blinked at him. You want to move? Well, I want you to move. I'll probably stay here for a while. Maybe fix it up. Sell later. But you could get a little apartment downtown or something. I'll help with the deposit, obviously. Obviously. I stared at him like he'd grown another head. You're asking me to leave the house. It's too painful for you here, he said, like he was doing me a favor. You need distance. Closure. Closure, I repeated. He nodded. I'm thinking you could be out by the end of the month. I looked him dead in the eye. Okay. He blinked. Okay. I'll be out by then. He smiled, relieved. Glad we're on the same page. 3 days after he asked me to graciously vacate the premises, a courier delivered a packet of documents to his office, 47 pages thick, bound, indexed, and bearing my full legal name on the front. The top document was a formal petition for equitable reimbursement under Illinois elder care statutes. Attached were notarized witness statements, financial records, and a full valuation of the unpaid labor I'd performed over the last 3 years. Total estimated value, $178,430. Estimated market value of the house, $169,000. Do the math. Daniel did. That same evening, he came home earlier than usual, slamming the front door behind him like he was storming into a battle he'd already lost. What the hell is this, Diana? He barked, waving the legal packet like it was junk mail. I was at the kitchen counter, making tea. It's my invoice, I said calmly, without turning around. He slammed the pages onto the counter. Are you serious? You're suing me. For caregiving? No, I said, pouring hot water into my cup. I'm suing for uncompensated labor, housing contributions, and the fraudulent removal of my name from the property we shared. But caregiving is a big part of it, yes. You lived here for free. I turned and stared at him. Free? I wiped your father's mouth while you were at the golf course. I bathed him when he couldn't lift his arms. I carried this house, its groceries, its bills, its maintenance, while you played financial magician behind my back. He looked stunned. No bluster. No smirk. Just silence. The kind you hear when reality hits like a freight train. I didn't think you'd go this far, he finally muttered. I smiled. That's the problem. You never thought. Court was scheduled 6 weeks later. He arrived in a gray suit that didn't quite fit, too loose in the shoulders, like he was trying to shrink away from judgment. I sat beside my attorney, Elizabeth Grant. My hair was pulled back. My folder rested neatly in front of me. The judge was a woman in her 60s. She didn't say much during opening remarks, just glanced down at the case file, lips tight. But I could tell by her eyes, this was not her first betrayal on paper. Daniel's lawyer, a young, smug man in a pinstripe suit, began with, Your Honor, this is a regrettable misunderstanding between spouses. My client merely sought to simplify estate planning after an inheritance. There was never malicious intent. Elizabeth stood. Your Honor, we are not here to debate feelings. We are here with documented proof of property transfer without consent, 3 years of unpaid eldercare, and evidence of deceptive asset reallocation during the plaintiff's full-time contribution to household and healthcare operations. She handed over the ledger. Each page marked with dates. Receipts. Statements. The judge flipped through. Paused. $178,000 worth of labor, she asked. Yes, Your Honor, Elizabeth said. The plaintiff's calculations are based on state care standards, minimum hourly rates, and conservative accounting of domestic contribution. And that's not including inflation or emotional strain. Daniel's lawyer scoffed. This isn't a business contract, this is marriage. We don't put price tags on partnership. The judge looked up sharply. Apparently he did, when he took the house. A beat of silence passed. Elizabeth continued. We are requesting either full legal ownership of the residence transferred to Ms. Mercer, or a payout equal to the total documented contribution, with penalties as permitted by Illinois Code 505.3. The judge nodded slowly. Understood. Daniel looked pale. The ruling came 3 days later. Daniel was ordered to either sign over the house in full, or pay $204,560, which included interest, court fees, and penalties for improper asset concealment. He signed the house over. His hand trembled as he did it, seated across from me at the title office. He couldn't look at me. He just stared at the pen like it was an execution order. I didn't say a word. The moment the final signature dried, I stood and walked out, the new deed in my bag, the air outside suddenly lighter than I'd remembered it in years. Later that evening, a text from Daniel arrived. You win. Congrats. I didn't reply. One evening in early fall, I stepped out onto the front porch with a glass of wine in hand, barefoot, wrapped in a sweater. The air was crisp. The sun dipped behind the trees. And across the street, a silver sedan slowed down. I recognized it immediately. Daniel. He didn't park. He didn't wave. He didn't get out. He just sat there, idling. Watching the house. Watching me. I didn't flinch. I didn't wave. I took a sip of my wine, turned, and walked inside, shutting the door gently behind me. That was the last time I saw his car. Maybe he thought I'd come running. Maybe he hoped to see regret. But regret doesn't live here anymore. People sometimes ask me if I hate him. I don't. Hate implies passion. Investment. A bond. What I feel is absence. Just the soft, calm reality that I won.